What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, back with some more boxing. Now, this week for Throwback Thursday, I want to take a look at fighter Edwin Valero and kind of give you guys some insight, those of you who aren't familiar with him. Talk about the talented, exciting, yet troubled fighter. And basically, Edwin Valero, he was an exciting fighter, known for his come forward, aggressive style. He was a southpaw. He finished his career at a record of 27-0. He was undefeated. Not too many champions have retired undefeated. There have been some: Rocky Marciano, Joe Calzaghe, etc. And he had 27-0, with 27 of those coming by way of knockout or TKO, which is very impressive. Now, this guy was known for his power and aggressive style. He liked to fight. There's no doubt about it. You would see him in the ring, and he was exciting. He's for the fans who weren't faint of heart and they liked the blood and gut style. Edwin Valero was definitely the man. He had a brutal, punishing style. You could tell he was confident in his skills. It's really reminiscent to a Mike Tyson if you think about his career. Definitely one that's had his ups and downs, full of trouble, substance abuse, drug abuse, domestic violence, and just two fighters with raw, untamed power until they got with their camps, and those camps tried to hone and fine tune that type of power. The same way Customato did with Tyson, that's what Valero's team did. Now, Valero was a tough kid from the streets of Venezuela and got into boxing. He had a pretty solid amateur record, little over 80 fights with about 6 losses, I think it was. And he just had that raw, untapped power. And a lot of people in his division couldn't handle that. A lot of people speculate what would have happened if Manny Pacquiao and Edwin Valero were to ever have fought. I personally think that would have been a hellacious fight, and we would have really seen who's who. And possibly, just possibly, Pacquiao may not be the international superstar that he is today, and those roles might have been reversed depending on the outcome. It would have been a good fight, a winnable fight for both. Both are southpaws, both have power, both are aggressive, especially in that weight class. I would have loved to have seen that fight. That's one of the fantasy fights that I always think about what could have possibly happened. Now, I've done some boxing interviews, some exclusive interviews on my channel. I did one with Mikey Garcia and also Omar Figueroa Sr. And those two fighters have something in common. They both had lots of sparring sessions with Edwin Valero. And I talked to Mikey, and you guys can watch the interview. We talked some of it on camera or on tape and some of it off. He said the guy could crack. He said he's been in there with Pacquiao. He's been in there with X, Y, and Z. And Valero was the real deal. So a lot of people question, like, oh, he hasn't fought nobody. His biggest win is Antonio DeMarco. But there's also a freakish type of power. It looks like Gennady Golovkin has it right now. Kovalev. There's other guys that are active that have that freakish Mike Tyson type power where most people in that weight class don't know how to deal with it. So you could be flawed, you can make mistakes, but it's really hard to overcome that. So Mikey Garcia, he attested to the fact that Edwin Valero was the real deal. He was, of course, younger. Same thing with Omar Figueroa Sr. He said in Texas they were sparring with Valero, and Valero liked his son because they both have that aggressive style. Of course, his son was younger, and his dad told me, he was like, he rocked my son, and my son rocked him. It was just a hellacious, rough and tumble battle of attrition in sparring. And from what I hear, several interviews, Edwin Valero was the type of fighter, he had no quit in him. He would die in the ring. You know what I mean? He would go out on his shield. They said he trained literally daily, even when his career took a turn for the downside. If you guys don't know, Edwin Valero, he was involved in a motorcycle accident. He had a motorcycle accident before he even turned pro, and he fractured his skull. He had some brain swelling, like hemorrhaging or some shit, and it created a blood clot, which doctors had to have surgery to go in there and remove. So based on that, it created brain wave irregularities, and maybe he wasn't getting tested properly, or some of the other commissions didn't detect it. But he fought all these professional fights. Then he got to New York, I think, in the early 2000s to fight because he had a fight scheduled. He was with Golden Boy, and they were trying to market him as the next big thing, the next big prospect. Someone like how they marketed Adrian Broner or Canelo. Edwin Valero was supposed to be that dude, and he went to New York, who's known for being really strict in terms of just all laws, whether it's the RICO law, the law that got Robert Guerrero and the gun charge, got him arrested and that kind of stuff. New York is very strict with its laws, and they didn't clear him. And then from that point on, based on the brain irregularities that he suffered from the motorcycle accident with no helmet, he was never able to fight in the U.S. again. I think there was a couple places like Texas that might have allowed it because Texas kind of does their own thing with scoring and also with their commission. But basically, he was shunned and banished from boxing, and it's pretty upsetting. And most people would have probably taken it a lot harder. Your whole professional career is all of a sudden cut off because no one wants to clear you for a fight. We've seen this happen before. Tommy Morrison, after he contracted HIV, of course, no one's going to clear him to fight. And he fought and he fought and he fought. He didn't take it well, got into drugs, and the rest is history. So, Edwin Valero, they said even though he was banished and he couldn't fight in the U.S., he was still fighting outside of the U.S. And he was training like he had some big fight coming up, like he was still going to be on HBO's Boxing After Dark. And it just goes to show you that some of these people, they just love to fight. Now, there's classic sparring tapes with him and Eric Morales, which are great. You can see he was getting in some good work with a veteran who's also fought Pacquiao 3 times. And to me, I think this dude was official. He just, his light was extinguished before he had the chance to blossom. And it's unfortunate that based on a variety of things, his environment, the career changing like decision to not let him fight in the U.S., multitude of things, it pushed him probably closer over the edge. Then he was involved with some domestic violence. I think there was an altercation with his mom and his sister. Then I think he put his wife in the hospital, and then he got in trouble and publicized for threatening his wife while she was in the hospital, as well as medical staff. And he was abusing drugs. He was in a rehab, and then it got to the point where it escalated so bad where he ended up stabbing his wife, and he was arrested. Authorities came and got him or whatnot, and he admitted to stabbing her. Then he was in jail. I think in Venezuela, he was in some jail, and he used his own wardrobe, his own attire to create a makeshift noose or whatever and hung himself. And then I guess when the authorities got to him, he was like barely alive, and he died a short time later from asphyxiation. So just a crazy up and down tumultuous story. And a fighter, this happens unfortunately a lot in boxing, where we see these fighters and their full potential is not realized for one reason or another. We've seen a lot of talented fighters, Tyson, Johnny Tapia, and then things take a turn for the worse. And for one reason or another, they get involved with drugs or depression or whatever the situation is. And we never really get to see what would have become if they had the proper direction, the proper management, or the proper mindset. So for Throwback Thursday, I want to talk about Edwin Valero. I wanted to share that with you. He was an exciting fighter. His big win over Antonio DeMarco was impressive. Antonio DeMarco was coming up through the ranks and definitely gaining notoriety. And he fought DeMarco in Mexico. And that just shows you this dude had no fear. And another thing is, Valero was battling a nasty, nasty cut, really bad. He was bleeding profusely in the DeMarco fight. And I believe that was in the first round. And that just is a testament to how much of a warrior he was, because other people sometimes when they see their own blood, even Pacquiao versus the Eric Morales fight, Pacquiao seemed noticeably bothered in the first fight, and the fight where Pacquiao had the bad cut, it wasn't even a fraction as bad as Edwin's cut. Pacquiao seemed bothered, and that's the fight he lost against Morales out of the 3 fights that they fought. So Valero, there was no fear in him, and he fought like a true warrior, even with the cut. And from what I've seen in interviews, they said he was so confident in his power, he just took it and he approached different fights as if he can destroy anyone or no one could take his power. And that's kind of what he showed you in the ring. His first 19 fights, he won, and 18 out of the 19 were won by first round knockout. So even if you're fighting the cab drivers, if you're fighting bums, if that's what some people say, that's still pretty impressive to knock everybody out in the first round. I mean, they didn't even get to see the second round in 18 fights. So he had some uncanny type of power. It's just unfortunate what happened with this whole situation. So let me know what you guys think of Edwin Valero. Have you heard any stories? Share them with me. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video's Ego signing off.